Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Lisa Park. I'm with AT&T's Internet of Things Solutions organization based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here with you today and with the esteemed audience and participants in this event. Before I get going, I will just make a quick message. You know, my comments today are going to be around connectivity. And I know this is a very connected audience. And so what I would ask and invite you to do is connect with AT&T on social media while you're checking your Snapchat and your WhatsApp and all those other things out there during my remarks. Connect with us on social media. We have a presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So follow us. You'll get some great technology information and learn how to reach your full business potential. Our handle is ATTMX, Mexico, Negocios. All right. So I've been working in the telecom industry for a long time now and have seen a lot of change. And to give you some examples of how far we've come and how much this industry has changed over the last few years, think back to when we used to talk about phones. So there was a time not so long ago when we talked about phones, we were mostly talking about landline, fixed wired connections, right? That's what we had, and that's what a phone was. And we used those connections to talk on, and some big innovations came our way, and we had services like caller ID and caller name coming across those phones, and that was really a big deal. But then the next evolution happened, and then we started talking about mobile phones and cell phones, and all of a sudden you didn't need that fixed line connection anymore, and you were able to take your device with you. But even at the very beginning, it was still a phone, and the activity that we were doing on our phone was mostly using it to talk on the phone, right? They had small screens, they maybe had a calculator, maybe you could play that game Snake. I don't know if anyone remembers that game, but you know, I'm taking you way back with that one. But you know, buttons, not screens. And then the next evolution of mobile phones came along, and all of a sudden we were carrying phones, but they weren't really phones anymore. They were mostly screens, and we were using touch screens, and we were doing all kinds of things that our old phones didn't do. We were using them for navigation and for maps. And as our cameras, you know, we weren't carrying around cameras anymore. We were using them to browse the internet all of a sudden. So the way that we're using our devices have continued to evolve. And if you even think about, I like that point about the internet and how you access the internet, because if you think back in the not so far away past, when you access the internet, it was primarily through personal computers, right? Your PC, your laptop. But now I think you would probably be like me, and you're not using those devices as often to access the internet, and you're using a mobile device, a phone, a tablet. And in the future, what I'll be talking about today is there's going to be a lot more of those things that are connected to the internet, and we're going to be using them in all kinds of different ways in your own lives and in your business lives as well. So when I talk about IoT, what I'm talking about is connecting those devices that are not smartphones and not tablets. It's all those other things in our lives, and we're making those devices smart by embedding them with connectivity. We are allowing those devices to connect to the internet. We're allowing those devices to sense data, and then we can use that data, we get sent the data, and use it to make our lives and our businesses better. That's what we're talking about here. So we're going to start experiencing the world in a very, very different manner than what we're used to. And you can really think about this in your own way right now. I mean, this isn't stuff that's necessarily going to happen in the future, although it's going to really change in the future. It's changing our lives today, and the potential is truly unlimited. So if you think about how the Internet of Things has impacted your own lives, and we can think about it in a few different dimensions. In the case of healthcare, I think this is one of the areas that is right now slated to be completely disrupted. We've talked about disruption a lot today, but healthcare is one of those areas where IoT is going to be extremely disruptive to that business. The business model in healthcare for many, many years, as long as healthcare has been around, has been both a reactive model, so generally you seek healthcare when something's wrong, you know, maybe you'll do some proactive work, but in general it's reactive to something's going on with you, and it's all centered around being able to consult with experts who are not you about information about you. And so the way that the Internet of Things is changing this, it's really democratizing our healthcare models. So think about you having the ability to sense what's going on with you personally, right? Through sensor technologies, through wearables, through other devices that you may use. And these devices can do everything from measure your heart rate, to take your, your pulse, to monitor your calorie intake or your glucose. You control and you own that data, and you can also take action against that data, perhaps without even seeking the advice of a healthcare professional. You could proactively react. So healthcare is going to be absolutely disrupted by IoT. Another area that is really changing, and this is happening now, is in the space of wearable devices. And again, it wasn't so long ago when the only device we were truly wearing, or pretty common that people were wearing, were watches. And they told us the time, or maybe they had a calculator, but that was about it. So they're very, used for very specific functions. But these days, watches are just one category of wearable devices where adding connectivity and adding smarts to these devices is allowing us to interact with them in all different ways. So we're not just talking about watches, we're talking about wearable clothing, wearable glasses, other devices that could attach to your person to give you new information that you might have not had access to before. It's all about the idea of this quantifiable self, right? What are we tracking about ourselves? What are we measuring? And then in a lot of cases, what are we sharing with other people? How many of you have tracked a run or tracked a workout and then shared it on social media? You get the comments and get the feedback from your friends on great job of completing that run. This is who we are, and this is the way we're acting and reacting to the devices and the data that they're giving us. The next area is connected vehicles, and I'll talk about connected vehicles in a little more depth later on, but it wasn't so long ago that I think most of us in the room would have thought, why in the world would we want to add a SIM card, or why in the world would we want to have connectivity embedded in vehicles? And I'll tell you, there's a lot of reasons why we'd want to do that, and I'll give you some examples later, but improving the safety, diagnostics, being able to do predictive maintenance, all of these are reasons that are coming forward now through the Internet of Things. And then lastly, in your homes, the ability to monitor your home security, the ability to control your home automation, whether it's a thermostat or a garage door, those are all technologies that are here today and are being made possible through the Internet of Things that may impact you personally. On the other side of this, the Internet of Things is also transforming businesses. And it's doing so significantly across many different verticals. It's fundamentally changing the way that we work. A few of the verticals that I'll talk about: retail, giving you the ability to measure store performance, interact with your customers differently, even dispense products. Think about smart vending machines, all different ways in which we're able to interact differently in the retail space. Agriculture is another big area for the Internet of Things, improving uptime, extending the life of farming equipment, being able to determine the best time of when you want to harvest or when you want to fertilize. Those are all really important pieces of data that if you're in the agriculture industry, you want to know, and that it can help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your business. The energy industry. We're seeing more and more utility monitoring happening. Everything from street lights to helping cities be more efficient with their energy usage. I'll talk later about water and preserving that precious resource and how the Internet of Things is helping there. But cities are very much interested in the ability to proactively improve the experience for their citizens, as well as preserve their own operations and make their own operations more efficient through the Internet of Things. And then lastly, today we've heard a lot about supply chain and transportation and logistics. Internet of Things is helping with everything from better logistics coordination, asset utilization, asset tracking, real-time monitoring. I could go on and on and on. The Internet of Things really could be viewed as the thread that is weaving throughout all of our businesses to help improve levels of efficiency, generate cost savings, and even create new revenue models. So I usually get to this point in the remarks, and people are giving me crazy looks and saying, okay, Internet of Things, we've heard a lot of buzz, we've heard a lot of hype. Is this a real business, or is there something to this Internet of Things, right? And so I usually say, yes, this is absolutely a real business, and it's absolutely something businesses are using today and considering for the future. And I won't let you just hear it from me, but I'll also let you see some of what the analysts are saying about the growth potential in this industry. So the chart on the left was supposed to show 2 lines, but I'm going to have you imagine that there are 2 lines on here because the other line isn't showing up. So I will talk you through how this works on the chart on the left. The horizontal line is showing the number of human beings on the planet, okay? And expected to be relatively constant through the next few years, right out to 2020. And this is where you'll have to use your imagination a bit because there's another line, and it's the growth curve of connected devices, devices that are connected to the internet. And up until 2011 is where you'd see the number of human beings surpass by a pretty good margin the number of internet-connected devices. But at 2011, you have an inflection. And all of a sudden, the number of connected devices exceeded the human population on Earth. And okay, you can kind of buy that, right? Because many of you are probably carrying around or have access to more than one connected device. And some people don't, but it probably all balances out. And in the end, maybe you could believe that it's about equal. But where this chart really gets compelling is 2020 and beyond. And that's where the explosive growth of the Internet of Things starts to happen. And to put this in perspective is the right side of the chart. 80 things connected to the internet for the first time every second. By 2020, that's going to be 250 things every second connected to the internet. So think about that, every single second going by, more and more devices connected to the internet. And to put that in a little bit more perspective, just in terms of the billions of devices that are forecasted in this space, for personal computers, it took about 20 years to get to 1 billion devices, okay, 20 years. For smartphones, it only took 4 years to get to 1 billion devices. And with the Internet of Things, we already hit 6 billion devices back in 2012. And it's expected that that number will reach somewhere in the range of 30 to 50 billion devices by the time we hit 2020. I mean, the numbers are just absolutely staggering. The other thing to think about, though, is that there's going to be various flavors of connectivity that are used to connect these devices. It's not all going to be over the cellular network. It'll be a variety of network technologies ranging from cellular to fixed broadband to Wi-Fi and other short-range technologies, and even emerging network technologies that are coming on the scene now to connect these devices. So we're going to see a variety of devices, a variety of use cases, and a variety of network technologies used to connect these billions of devices all over the world. So again, I'll come back to the question of, is this a real business, right? And are businesses really, truly thinking about Internet of Things? And my answer is yes, absolutely they are. And in fact, 85% of global organizations are currently considering or exploring an IoT strategy. So what this means for you who are involved in business, if you're not thinking about this, if you're in the 15% who's not thinking about it, you're going to get left behind if you're not. What's also really interesting about this is it's often not the people who have typically worked in IT or network who are considering Internet of Things technologies. It's often C-levels like the chief marketing officers. It's often the director or the officer in charge of supply chain and logistics who are considering these technologies. So it's a very different group of decision makers who are considering Internet of Things and how that can play and how that can improve their line of businesses. And what they're using this for, it's all what's up here on the screen, right? Increasing revenue, streamlining operations, reducing costs, saving times, and my favorite one is increasing the visibility. Because as much as Internet of Things is device-centric, it's data-driven. These devices are not going to do any good if they're simply connected to the internet and are not giving you information that you can use and that you can act on. So that data component, the data that's being collected and what that data can mean for your business is absolutely critical. So what I want to do is take the next few minutes and talk through a few examples of how businesses are using the Internet of Things today. And these are real-world examples, so this isn't some futuristic commentary on what's to come. These are real-world things that are happening right now. Okay, the first one. This is a retail vertical example, and it's regarding connected coolers. So pretty simple concept, right? You've all used these coolers before in convenience stores or grocery stores. They hold everything from milk to soda to water to beer, and you go in the cooler, you open the door, you take your beverage out, and you go. Well, you know, there's some business problems involved with these coolers, and we're actually working with a company at AT&T AT&T is working with a company to help improve the way these coolers are providing information to the cooler manufacturers. So if you're a cooler owner or a cooler manufacturer, what's probably really important to your business is, number one, are the coolers maintaining the proper temperature, right? So is it keeping your goods at the right range of temperature? So there's temperature sensors installed in these coolers. It's probably also really important to make sure that you're aware when these coolers go offline. If there's a power surge or power outage, you'd want to know that right away. Or what if the door is left open and it's causing quality issues with your product? All of these data points are important to the people who are in the cooler industry, and that's why they've made a strategic decision to collect that data and to use it to help improve the quality of their coolers and also help improve the businesses who are using those coolers so they're not producing a sub-quality product. The other really interesting application for the cooler tracking or cooler sensing, believe it or not, is GPS. So it's really important information on where these coolers are located, but another interesting fact is that depending on the brand, there's also a high propensity for these coolers to be stolen, believe it or not. And so actually knowing where this cooler might be, if it's not in the place that it's supposed to be, is really important information as well. Okay, let me give you another example. I love this one. This is out of the healthcare space. And it's the concept of a connected wheelchair. We actually did a proof of concept application with a company called PerMobile. If you haven't heard of them, they are a Swedish company, and they're really a leader in the field of powered wheelchairs. And again, this is one of these devices that you might think, okay, what's the value in adding connectivity? What's the value in sensing data from a wheelchair? But actually, there's a ton of value, both on the part of the manufacturer as well as the clients who are using these chairs. So think about if you're able to monitor a connected wheelchair through that connectivity, the things that you could use in your decision-making process are things like, what is the seating position of the chair? Is it at an incline or is it straight up? And is that good for the person who's using the chair? What is the cushion pressure and how is that affecting your customers' comfort levels? What is the battery level of these chairs? It would be really bad to run out of charge when you're far away from the charging apparatus, right? So is there a way to proactively notify the user or their caretaker when it's getting too far out of range and might not be able to safely make it back to a charging location? Think about predictive maintenance requirements. If something went wrong with the wheels or one of the gear, at the end of the day, you're impacting someone's mobility and you're impacting someone's life. So you want to make sure that this wheelchair is 100% 24/7 and it's ready for the use of those particular clients. So you can see different types of information being used in different ways, whether you're on the customer or caretaker side of the equation, or whether you're on the manufacturer side of the equation. This data and insights that the Internet of Things can provide for a use case such as connected wheelchairs presents a really compelling value proposition. Okay, I have more. The next one. Asset management. This is a vertical that we're really interested in within the IoT space. And the way I like to think about this is, where's my stuff and what's my stuff doing right now? And that's a whole category of data that we want to glean about your inventory, your supply chain, and your goods as it moves through different transportation paths. AT&T worked with a company, Monsanto, on a particular IoT application for seed environment management. And we have a product called AT&T Cargo View. And what this is, it's a little device. It's about the size of a deck of playing cards. And you can attach it to your cargo and then transport this cargo over land, sea, or air. And all the while, this device is collecting and transmitting data back to you. And it measures things like GPS location, it measures things like temperature, it measures shock, it measures light or darkness. So if you were Monsanto and really concerned about maintaining the integrity of your seed stock, this could be very important information for you to have. One other really important component of this particular product is that it's called Cargo View because it's used in cargo scenarios, but it works just like airplane mode when it's up in the air on an airplane, in that it will shut off, still be collecting data while you're in the air but not transmitting that data, and then once it's safe to start transmitting the data again, once it's back on land, it will do so and pick up right where it left off and give you that data of what happened when it's in the air, because you'd also want to know what's going on during that air transportation as well. The other way that Monsanto is using the Internet of Things is in their supply chain. And I think a really interesting application here is for their ability to reposition assets in a way that works for their business. So think about assets like truck traffic, right? If you run into a traffic jam or other conditions where your product is not going to get there in time, or maybe face conditions that may be risky to the integrity of the product, you might want to divert to a different route, and they're using sensor data to do that. Also think about agricultural workers and folks who are doing the actual picking of the produce. You'd want to make sure that you're monitoring the conditions, picking the produce at an optimal time to really maximize the effectiveness of your business. And Internet of Things is helping them do just that. Okay. Moving on, next. So see, there's a lot of different ways you can be thinking about Internet of Things. These are just a few of them. Next up is fleet and heavy equipment. And this is a huge space of growth for us in AT&T. And today at AT&T, we connect about 1.9 million vehicles on the road. And we allow the data and the connectivity to be secure and monitored in real time. And so if you're in charge of a fleet operation, think about how it might be valuable to you, right? To know the location of your fleet, to know how many hours your drivers are spending on the road, to know the condition of your fleet. Again, that predictive maintenance comes into play. That diagnosis, the safety of your fleet drivers, all of that information can be sensed from the vehicles and from the drivers themselves to give you good information to make business decisions that may impact your fleet. This next one on heavy equipment, I know we heard a little bit about this before with a previous example about mining operations, but the example that I would like to give here is with agricultural equipment. So you think about it, if you're in agriculture, you're dealing with a lot of big, heavy machines that are not easy to move around from place to place. And they're also very expensive. And they're also very expensive to maintain. And you don't want to be sending out technicians unnecessarily to what could perhaps be remote areas to repair something that's not really broken. But how great would it be if you knew when things were nearing end of life or if things were about to go wrong and you received an alert that could let you make a better business decision that, hey, now is the time to deploy the maintenance technicians to this area, so you're not guessing about what's happening with your equipment and you're making decisions real time to get the necessary repairs out to those particular pieces of equipment. And this leads me into a few words about connected car. Today, AT&T connects 19 different automotive brands, and they're listed there on the slide. And again, this is one of these areas where I think if you look back a few years, no one was thinking about connected cars. But I'll tell you today that in the future, all of our cars will be connected. How many of you guys drive a connected car today, either through embedded technology or with an aftermarket device plugged in? Any hands? I see 1, 2, maybe 5, max in the audience. You guys will all be driving connected cars in the future. And so what are you going to be doing? Why would you even want a connected car, right? Well, there's two different ways that I look at this space. One is in terms of high bandwidth services. So think about a lot of the consumer applications, whether you're a passenger in the car, hopefully you're not using some of these services while you're driving. It can wait, so put the phone down, do not be messing with your dashboard while you're driving. But things like using the Wi-Fi hotspot to download data, real-time traffic alerts, map updates, location-based information, even doing over-the-air updates to the technology in your car. You could all see how that would add value to your driving and your car experience, right? But on the other edge of the spectrum is low bandwidth services. And these are services that the car OEMs, the car manufacturers in particular, are extremely interested in. And there are also consumer benefits too. So some of the things like proactive diagnostics, how great would it be to know that a timing belt is going to go bad or a tire is going to go flat before that actually happens, and being able to notify your end user customer of that risk, right? So improving road safety. How great would it be able to be to, as a car manufacturer, to consolidate data in aggregate and find out if specific elements of your vehicles aren't working up to spec, right? So you could use that information to improve the performance in future models. And then on the flip side of these low bandwidth services are a whole bunch of different applications that are great for the consumer too. Things like emergency response at the touch of a button, or maybe even not even having to take any proactive action. The car knows when you're in an emergency condition and sends and calls for help, right? Stolen vehicle tracking, so you know where your car is, right? Where's my stuff and how's my stuff doing? Well, there's a problem if your vehicle's stolen, but you would have visibility into where that vehicle is and what it's doing at any particular time. And then shifting into the future, there's going to be a whole host of services where we're going to need vehicles to be connected. So we heard earlier about autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars. You're going to need not only good connections to the network to make sure that real-time data is getting through effectively, but also real-time connections to perhaps the roads and the traffic signals and perhaps even other cars on the road. All of those are going to be really important technologies in the future, and another reason why the Internet of Things for connected vehicles makes a whole lot of sense. The next example I'll talk about is connected elevators, and I really love this example too because again, it's one of those off-the-wall examples that you really wouldn't expect when you're thinking about connecting different types of things. But recently, AT&T worked with Otis Elevators to provide connected services into their elevators. They're calling these advanced elevators. And what this will do is we'll give them real-time information about how their elevators are functioning. And again, they can use it to eliminate unnecessary maintenance visits. It will help them save time, it will help them save cost, and just create a better and more effective product in the marketplace. So I love that example because it's a little bit unusual, but a little bit about how businesses that you might not think about being interested in the Internet of Things are finding a great deal of value in the Internet of Things today. My final example is around smart cities, and I think I lost my graphics on here, but we got the words at least, so you'll be able to kind of picture this in your mind, what I'm talking about. Smart cities use cases for Internet of Things spans across the gamut, and you'll see various applications from transportation. Think about things like mass transport. I love smart parking. What if your parking spaces could tell you where they're available so you don't have to drive around and find a parking spot? Urban planning, all kinds of different transportation applications. Citizen engagement, this is one area where municipalities are really interested in, is how can we interact better with the citizens of our communities. Things like public Wi-Fi hotspots, help and find applications, and even venue experiences when you're in a park or other public places. How can we use connectivity to make those experiences better for our citizens? Public safety is the next one, so using sensor data to give us better access to real-time information about dangerous conditions in our cities. So think about video surveillance technologies. Think about, this is a really interesting one, gunshot detection technologies, so you can know in real time when a gun has gone off just by sensing the audio. It even gets so sophisticated as to be able to sense the model of the gun that was fired, which I think is extremely fascinating. The next one is infrastructure, and I'll come back to this one as well, but things like smart waste management, again, that concept of just-in-time or real-time processing of information. No need to send out folks who are involved in waste transportation if the trash bins aren't full, right? Why not just send them out when the bins are full instead of having to make unnecessary visits on their route? And then lastly, energy and utilities. We're all looking at what we can do to conserve our energy, and so things like smart grid solutions, smart lighting solutions, and water management solutions are of growing importance to cities. My final example floats off of that last one, the water management. This is a really interesting area and one where AT&T worked with the Las Vegas Water District on a pretty unique project. So if you work in city government, you'll probably know that one of your biggest expenses as a city is water, right? And what's really, really bad is when you can't bill for that water, right? It's non-revenue generating water. And in this type of environment where you want to be able to bill for your water, leaks are a huge problem. And even extremely small leaks, like less than a centimeter in diameter, can result in millions of gallons of water lost per year. And they may be undetectable. And the fact of the matter is that our water infrastructure, at least in the United States, is relatively old. And it's relatively difficult to identify when something's going wrong with that infrastructure. The project that we worked on with the Las Vegas Water District was to install acoustic sensors on their water lines. And what it would be doing is sort of listening. I mean, it's essentially listening for leaks. And based on the acoustic information that was transmitted from these sensors, the maintenance crew who worked on the water lines could determine when they needed to go out and repair leaks at a much earlier stage than they were previously. So again, a really great example of Internet of Things leading to conserving resources, using resources more effectively, and helping cities run more effectively as well. Okay. I will close with one last plug. If you're interested in the Internet of Things, and there's a ton to learn about the Internet of Things, visit our website, att.com/IoT. We've been publishing a number of white papers on topics ranging from cybersecurity, I know that's coming up next, so you might be interested in that one, all the way to just basic overviews of the Internet of Things. We actually published a new paper this week about what you need to know about IoT wide area networks. It's a really good paper and a pretty quick read despite the title, so I'd say check it out, and again, follow us online for more great information about how IoT and other AT&T services can impact your business in a positive manner. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure.